Hello everyone, Elite Clockwoman here. Finally this day has come, because today, the longest episode of the SKIBIDI multiverse was released. And the DOM studio team never ceases to amaze us with such crazy duration and quality of animation. And in this video, we really have something to talk about because for me, this is the best and also the craziest episode of all time. And it turns out that the plot is much deeper than I expected. And compared to these guys, the Alpha and her master seem like nothing. But let's not get too far ahead. I think the master will also play an important role. Anyways, in this video, we will find absolutely all the details of this crazy episode. And you will find out what is happening now and who these new and powerful guys are. And in general, there will be a lot of information and theories, so be sure that you will stay until the end. But before we get into all this, make sure to hit that like button and subscribe to the channel if you like this episode. And here we go. At the beginning of the episode, the battle between toilets and agents continues, only in a different place. And we saw an old friend, SKIBIDI Hydra, who was in the original series in the early episodes. But this is not important, since what is important is how he was stopped. And at first I thought that the Titan Clockman stopped this toilet. But it seems that the Clockman created a new type of weapon, namely grenades that stop time. And to be honest, I don't understand why they didn't create this earlier, and perhaps if these grenades were from the beginning of the series, then they would ended this war, because these are very cheating things. And it looks like this is the same cameraman Flash from episode 22, since he has a green shirt. And bro washed off this noob on the chill, and then flew to another battlefield, since this is a huge territory, and right now there are battles everywhere. And after that, a more juicy event begins, as the Titans are back in action. And after the blood cameraman showed thumbs up, the first guest to the party appeared. And this is SKIBIDI Volcano from episode 14, SKIBIDI Skull from episode 3, and also the new character, SKIBIDI Bronson. But you tell me what kind of Bronson? In fact, this is another reference to the cool movie Bronson with Tom Hardy, and this movie is about one of the most dangerous prisoners in Britain. And I'm glad that DOM Studio doesn't stop adding various references, and believe me, this is not the last reference in this episode. And I would say that these are quite dangerous guys, but in fact they don't pose a threat to our Titans. And look how the Titans began to decide who would deal with these guys. And Titans so calm that they don't worry about it at all, since for them, it's a game. And Bro TV Man decided to deal with them, and he prepared his sword and was ready to smash Bronson to the ground. But he realized that this guy wanted to box a little, and decided to play by his rules. And at that time, the cameraman fought with SKIBIDI Volcano. But actually, there's not much to analyze, and since the episode is incredibly long, I won't comment on every move, and we'll talk about important and funny moments. But we should pay attention to the fight between Bronson and TV Man, and it looks like Bronson turned out to be stronger in a fist fight, and TV Man decided to break the rules, and turned on his disco, and then accurately punched this dude in the head, and we said goodbye to him. And at that time, Blood Cameraman also finished with the volcano, and only one skeleton remained, who tried to do at least something, but the dude was too slow, and they began to literally break him into pieces. And we see an incredible teamwork from Titans, since the cameraman wanted to blow up the head of the skeleton with his laser, but Skeleton managed to dodge, and he hit TV Man, but TV Man was not confused and absorbed this laser with a core, and then returned it to the skeleton. And I'm not gonna lie, this was 200 IQ Giga-Chad move. But the skeleton turned out to have a shield, and it is important to note that the shield is the same as that of the Titan cameraman had in episode 19. And it turns out that the scientist was able to copy even this? That's insane, actually. And on this skeleton, you can see a strange purple device, and it is from it that this shield comes. And I want to remind you that this thing was not in episode 3 when we first saw this skeleton, and it seems that the scientist still has not forgotten about his old soldiers and improving them and adding new technologies. But in any case, this shield saved the skeleton only for a moment, since in a second the cameraman finished him off. And for some reason, he looked at his gun, and it turns out that it was broken. But after Daddy Clockman praised the guys for a good performance, he fixed the cannon. But at that time, another enemy appeared, and we didn't even see his face before he started flying everywhere like Light McQueen, and the Clockman tried to stop time, but for some reason, it didn't work the first time, and only the second time he was able not to stop, but to slow down time a little. And actually, I'm shocked and confused because Daddy's abilities didn't work on the skeleton, or at least they affect him differently. And there is no way that the scientist was able to figure out how to counter this ability so quickly. But in any case, we will learn more about this only in episode 34, where their battle will take place. And you also asked a lot where the Astro toilets are, and here is one of them. Of course, I cannot confirm that this is exactly the Astro Toilet, but based on his shield and claw design like the SKIBIDI Knight from the original series, and crazy speed, then I can say from myself that this is an Astro Toilet, and it looks like he is damn strong. But the party is just beginning, as the ground began to move apart, and we saw a lot missiles, and Skull was able to absorb the cameraman's attack and return it back. And these are clearly Astro Toilet tricks, since Astro Claw did the same in episode 72. The skeleton was even able to easily dodge the Gigachad's sudden attacks, but after that, he ran away from there, since hundreds of missiles flew into the air. And I'm not gonna lie, this is a damn dangerous situation for the Titans, and it's unlikely they would have been able to survive after such an explosion. But Daddy Clockman didn't give up, and he had to sweat a lot to stop it. And he began to cast his magic and stop time. Or rather, he returned it back before the rockets began to take off. And at the same time, he returned the Astro Skeleton. And you can see that he began to move very slowly, and this means that this ability spends a lot of energy even for him. And then he began to think about how to stop it. And it seems that he get it, and conjured his sword for himself. And this sword formed a huge dome that completely covered this area so that the missiles would not take off and explode inside the dome. And this is already 250 IQ move, but it seems that he cannot move to hold this dome. And he hinted about this to TV Man. But the party didn't end there, as a huge black smoke appeared from behind the skull and a SKIBIDI scientist came out of it. And I'll be honest with you, I doubted that the scientist would even participate in this battle. Has he gone crazy? He thinks that he and some kind of Astro Skull can defeat 3 Titans? But what if I tell you that he can defeat our Titans? And if you analyze all the events that are happening now, then it becomes clear why the scientist decided to fight the Titans. And the fact is that he will fight not with 3 Titans, but with 2. Since Daddy Clockman cannot help the Titans, since he must hold the dome. And I'm shocked how much the scientist came up with a brilliant plan. He realized that he had no chance of winning if the Titan Clockman was there. And he realized that if he could not defeat him, then he needed to distract him with something. And he expected that only the Titan Clockman would be able to stop these missiles. And then he and the Astro Skull would be able to fight 2 versus 2. But the question arises, can Scientist win even in this situation? He probably can, because he knows about all the abilities of the Titans, and also if he didn't have a chance, he would be less likely to go to this fight, so that it looks like the Titans are in big trouble. And although I don't want the Titans to lose, but so far everything is looking against them, and you know what? This is the best time for the appearance of an improved Titan Speakerman, or a Titan Pencilman if it even appears. And as I mentioned a couple of seconds ago, the scientist is confident in his victory, and that's why he's going to fight. So Titans need someone's help. In any case, we will find out about this only in the episode 34. And now the crazy and no less interesting part begins. Since we are shown the events 10 hours before that battle, and at the beginning of the scene, one of the SKIBIDI agents meets the scientist at the landing site, and based on the tunnel through which the scientist was flying, I can say that now they are underground. And we also saw in episode 20 that this laboratory has many underground levels, like in a laboratory from the Resident Evil. But then a container appeared, in which there was a real scientist. And then the SKIBIDI agent showed his work on a new type of mutants, and these are strong and big guys that look like some kind of special forces. But pay attention to their skin. The skin is weird, and they look like corpses, and that's insane. But what's crazier is their final form, and just look at this dude. Damn, he looks really creepy, and I can bet that one of these dudes can kill a small squad of ordinary cameramen. They also have different types of weapons, chainsaws, swords, and also 4 rockets on shoulders. I'm not gonna lie, I think one dude can kill 10 or 20 ordinary agents from the Alliance. Just imagine how many of these dudes there are. Perhaps a scientist makes them 24/7 like the Chinese make iPhones. And in fact, I thought that SKIBIDI toilets no longer had a chance after the Titan Clockman appeared. But geez, I was so wrong. It turns out that they have a huge army, and they also came up with a plan to distract the Titans. It seems these guys don't want to give up in this round, and the final battle has not even begun yet, and this is just preparation for it. But with every second this scene becomes more interesting, since now there will be tones of information and tones of questions. And the SKIBIDI agent escorted the scientist into some room. And it seems that the scientist himself does not know what he is doing here, but someone mysterious is approaching in a wheelchair. And it turns out that this is another SKIBIDI scientist, and from that moment the dialogues begin. I'm not going to repeat every word of what they are talking about, but I'll explain to you what's going on here in general. And let's figure out the names. I'll call this dude an engineer. What would not get confused in two scientists? The engineer said that he was glad to see the scientist alive again, which could mean that he was already dying, and it looks like the scientist literally cheated death and he somehow resurrected. And now he also uses dead SKIBIDI toilets for his own purposes. And this is a rather unusual ability for the SKIBIDI universe, but perhaps you shouldn't take these words literally, and there will be some kind of explanation in the future. And the scientist asked the engineer, "Are all the special soldiers ready?" But this engineer screwed up and said he needed more time. And the guys went to the room where there were several tanks, and one of these tanks was opened, and we saw an insanely cool dude, and his name is Mr. Leonardo. In short, Ninja Turtle Leonardo. But in fact, it looks like the guys from Dom Studio are fans of the legendary game Devil May Cry, since the design of this dude is definitely from this game. And Leo asked the scientist why he still uses the SKIBIDI language, and it turns out that the scientist can also speak English, but it seems he is already accustomed to the language of toilets, or he cannot speak yet for some reasons. I don't know for sure. And it is also important to note that Leo doesn't know SKIBIDI language, although he is not a human and also SKIBIDI toilet. But it seems that this dude, and also the dudes who we will see in a couple of seconds, they didn't live as long as the scientist himself, and the scientist is from an even older school, if you know what I mean. Then the engineer released the rest of the cool cyberpunk guys, and I'll be honest with you, their designs are incredible. I absolutely love them. They definitely add color to the story. But they started yapping, and we found out that this dude's name is Billy, although I thought that his name is Bruce Bennett, and he's the Hulk-Rom Avengers. And in fact, there are references to each of these characters, but we'll talk about that a little later. And then the guy with the mask asked, "How long has it been?" In short, the guys don't even understand what's happening now, what year, etc. And the engineer confirmed that now the toilets are in complete crap, but he's going to tell all the details along the way, since the commander is waiting for them. And the hot chick asked how long ago the commander woke up, and it turns out that he woke up from the very beginning during some kind of revolution. But it's honestly not yet clear what kind of revolution it was, but perhaps it was at the time when SKIBIDI toilets first appeared, and toilets tried to take over the world, and they probably would have succeeded if not for the forces of the Alliance. Then they started yapping again, but this time about Daddy Clockman, like he's the strongest dude in the area, and what's their plan to kill him. The engineer of course laughed, because these dudes wanted to kill Daddy, but they obviously don't have enough strength for this. And then bro got crazy, and started crying why this engineer didn't solve the problem with the Clockman, and he also noted that this baldy guy at least did something, and this got me rolling. But the engineer said that he was preparing everything for the final battle, and supposedly the Alliance would win the battle, but the toilets would win the war. And he said that their mission was not to kill the Titan clock, but is to lock him in place. And it looks like the baldy guy managed to divert the attention of the Clockman. As it is now, he is focused on maintaining the protective dome. And they need to distract Daddy Clock until the G-Man Apocalypse project ends. And it looks like Uncle G-Man will be a worthy opponent, even for Titan Clockman, and I can't wait to see it. And he said that there are about 15 left hours before the project with G-Man is completed. But I will remind you that this conversation took place 10 hours before the battle, so they have another 5 hours left to distract Clockman, and I think that they will be able to do it, and their project will be successful. And the engineer praises this project so much that he even allowed himself to say that the war will be over after the project is ready. But this is not the most important thing they talked about, since Leo said, "What kind of an AI can stop time?" But what did he mean by this? Does this mean that Clockmen are AI? It turns out that this is so since he said this, and I am shocked after this, and I have a lot of questions for Dom Studio, and I will definitely find out more, and I'll make a video about it. But for now, let's leave everything as it is. But the Hulk got angry when he heard about Pencil and began to destroy everything. Well, what do we expect from him? A typical Hulk. But it looks like he already had to fight with Pencilman, because he would be less likely to get angry with them, just like that, if he didn't know who they were. And at the end, the engineer said that each of the squad would have their own role in the final battle. And then we saw their commander, Male 07, and that's where the episode ended. I understand you if this episode was confusing for you, and you definitely didn't expect to see this, since what is happening now is different from the SKIBIDI universe that you saw before. But I think that everything is not as bad as some people write in the comments, and we need to give Dom Studio a chance. And I think that it will become more clear to us what is happening here already in the next episodes. In general, I know what is happening, but we won't know much about these new characters, who they are and where they came from. And for this reason, I will make another video later, where I will pay maximum attention to them, and we will analyze each character. And I will also ask Dom Studio a few questions and add them to the future video. Elite Clockwoman out.